DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com. You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
So you have a service dog. What type of screening should you expect at the airport? Well, you and your service dog will be screened by a walk-through metal detector. You may walk through together, or you may lead the dog through separately on a leash. If you opt not to be screened by the advanced imaging technology or walk-through metal detector, you will undergo a pat-down. If the metal detector alarms, you and your service dog will undergo additional screening, including a pat-down. During the additional screening, do not contact the dog other than holding the leash until a TSA officer has completed the inspection of your dog. TSA will not separate you from your service dog. If you have concerns about your screening, you can ask to speak with a supervisor or passenger support specialist at any point during the process. Service dog collars, harnesses, leashes, backpacks, vests, and other items are subject to security screening. Items that are necessary to maintain control of the service dog or indicate that the service dog is on duty do not require removal to be screened. If you need to relieve your service dog and must exit the security checkpoint, you and the service dog will need to go through the screening process again. You may request to move to the front of the line upon your return. Medication for service dogs must go through an X-ray or inspection screening. Please separate medications and inform the TSA officer that you carry these items for your service dog. On today's podcast, we are talking about 8 tips for traveling with a service dog. Let's kick it off.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is DogWorks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now, here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
Welcome to DogWorks Radio. I'm your host, Michelle Forto, and I'm the lead trainer of Alaska Dog Works, where we help you have the best relationship possible with your canine buddy. I have been a service dog trainer for almost 20 years. Based in Alaska, most of my clients have to fly to get just about anywhere. And a question came up recently from one of my service dog teams about flying with their service dog. Did you know airport security is necessary for any trip? But when traveling with your service dog, there are a few things to consider. Service dogs, under federal law, say they can go anywhere the public can, including the airport. By preparing your service dog in advance and completing all of the appropriate paperwork, you can help make your flying process more manageable and less stressful. So let's answer some of those questions that you guys have. Does my service dog need identification to fly? Even though federal law states that a service dog is not required to have identification, such as a leash, harness, or bandana that says that it is a service dog, Alaska Dog Works requires all of our teams to wear their vests. By making it easy for airport staff and others to identify your service dog quickly, you can help avoid any confrontations or issues that may arise. It is critical to understand that there are only 2 legal questions the airline staff can ask you about your service dog. They can ask, is this a service dog? The answer would be yes. Remember, the laws that define a service dog say it must perform a task or tasks that mitigate the challenges of a disability. If your dog is only for emotional support, he or she would not qualify. What does your service dog do for you? If you are asked this question, you do not have to tell them your medical condition, as your medical information is protected by HIPAA law. If you want to disclose your disability, that is your choice, but it is not required. We suggest you answer this question as follows. My service dog is trained to alert to my medical condition. My service dog is a mobility dog, a hearing impairment dog, or a visual impairment dog. Please don't feel pressured to disclose your disability because it is not legally required, but you must be prepared to tell what task your dog is trained to perform for you. What am I required to do to fly with a service dog? It is essential that you understand that airlines are an executive branch of the government under the Department of Transportation. DOT is not bound by federal ADA service dog laws, but they have created regulations that mirror those laws. The airlines found it necessary to create additional rules and required paperwork motivation due to irresponsible dog owners causing terrible incidents on planes where the dog was not trained appropriately. This led to dogs that were terrified and uncomfortable because they lacked proper training and socialization. These dogs were unprepared to be in a very small space with strangers who wanted to pet them, resulting in people being bitten and injured, ultimately leading to the dog owners being sued as well as the airline. With these issues, airlines had to find a way to avoid these problems and protect their passengers and staff. Thus, they created guidelines for distinguishing between inappropriate and appropriate dogs. In many cases, airlines will not allow emotional support dogs to fly. However, they allow service dogs to fly at no extra charge. Service dogs are treated like a cane or wheelchair, which a person would not be charged for flying with. Most airlines have created paperwork that needs to be filled out to confirm that the service dog is adequately trained. This paperwork should be filled out and submitted at least a few days before your flight. And I will even tell you guys, I highly suggest that you fill out this paperwork at least 7 to 10 days prior to your flight. This paperwork is designed to protect you and your service dog by preventing you from encountering inappropriate dogs that could cause problems or even pose a threat to your service dog and the people on your flight. What is my service dog required to do on the flight? The dog is required to lie on the floor at your feet, which, of course, is a limited amount of room. This is where prior training is crucial, so he or she is prepared to lay in a small space quietly for the length of the flight. The dog should also not be barking or lunging at people, acting aggressively, or presenting any type of safety risk. If the dog does become restless, it is crucial that you get the dog under immediate control. At Alaska Dog Works, our dogs undergo extensive training to adapt to these situations, allowing you to travel freely and safely. Can I be removed from the flight because of my service dog? If the service dog is posing a public safety threat, he or she can be denied access to the flight. For example, suppose it is lunging, growling, or barking at people. The airline has the right to deny you service for the safety of the other passengers. If the dog is barking at the recipient as an alert, this is not a threat. If the airline you are flying with requires advanced paperwork and you fail to submit it, they can refuse service for not following their guidelines. This is not only to help ensure the safety of the airline and its passengers, but you and your working dog as well, to prevent inappropriate dogs from potentially causing you harm. Here are some tips for preparing your service dog for flying. Book your airline in advance. This will give you time to research the airline requirements, such as advanced paperwork, and will also provide you with the time to check their amenities for your service dog, such as doggy release stations, so that you can plan potty breaks accordingly. Be sure you have worked your dog in a bathroom schedule that will accommodate the flight times. And remember, if you are flying to or from Alaska, the flight times are a minimum of 3.5 hours. And that is important that your dog understand and know how to stay in a downstay for the duration of the flight. They may move around, they may get up and turn around, but for the most part, they must remain calm and cool in the situation. So let's talk about that. Practice certain tasks and situations. Ensure that your dog has practiced getting into small spaces and lying down for long periods of time, such as I just suggested. The intended length of the flight is determinant on how far you are flying, how many times you are hopping on other planes, and so on and so forth. So make sure your dog is properly socialized, desensitized, and trained to deal with these situations, because a proper service dog should be invisible. It should be as invisible as possible unless it's performing a function. Your service dog should be able to go right onto the plane, lay down at your feet, and fly the entire distance, mostly unnoticed. If your dog is not at that level, you probably need more time to be ready to fly with them. How do you prepare at the airport? Make sure your dog has gone potty before you go through security. Most airports have doggy release stations, so be sure your dog potties one more time before you get on the plane. They don't know how long they will be on the plane when they have the urge to go. Therefore, it needs to be addressed in advance. The dog should also enter the boarding waiting area with you and lie down to wait to get on the plane. We're going to take a short break here, and when we get back, we're going to give you those 8 tips for traveling with a service dog.
We're living in uncertain times. If there is one thing we can be thankful for, that is the recent pet adoption boom. Shelters are being cleared out, and that means you may not know much about your new best friend. Alaska Dogworks virtual and on-site classes are the best way for you to build a lasting bond and learn about your pup, new or old, from setting up a proper routine to learning the commands and much more. Alaska Dogworks provides you with the resources to develop your dog into one of the best. Right now, Alaska Dogworks has an exclusive offer just for our listeners. Go to alaskadogworks.com now and use promo code DOGWORKS and save 20% off your training program at the time of your booking. Visit alaskadogworks.com and use promo code DOGWORKS to save 20% today. That's alaskadogworks.com and use promo code DOGWORKS at the time of booking.
Travel season is underway, and those traveling with a service dog should know what to expect. Airlines are required to transport service dogs who are trained to assist individuals with a documented disability under the Air Carrier Access Act. But they may have some requirements themselves. Keep these essential tips in mind when traveling with a service dog to be sure your journey is nothing but smooth sailing. 1. Fill out the required Department of Transportation form. There's just a little bit of paperwork beyond your passport when traveling with a service dog, and that's the Department of Transportation Service Animal Air Transportation form. This form will ask you to certify the animal's health, training, and behavior, and give written assurance that you understand the airline's requirements for traveling with a service dog. This is the only documentation airlines can ask for when traveling with your service dog. They're also required to make this form available on their website in an accessible format, but the DOT provides a sample form as a PDF to make it easy for them and for travelers. Here's a bonus tip about this, you guys. Anytime any of our service dog teams at Alaska Dog Works get ready to travel, I always remind them about the service animal air transportation form, as well as obtaining a health certificate. While the airline may not ask you for your health certificate, any hotels might while you're traveling. And it's always important to just have that ready whenever you travel. Also, with the new CDC guidelines making it really confusing coming and going from other countries, it's important that you just go ahead and get a health certificate in line for your trip. I will also give you an extra bonus tip here. Anytime you fill out your service animal air transportation form, there is a third-party company that will contact your trainer. Whoever you list as your trainer, they will contact for verification of training as well as the dog's behavior. So keep that in mind when you are filling out your form. Number 2, inform the airline that you have a service dog. While airlines are required to transport trained service dogs, it's still good to let your airline know ahead of time that you'll be traveling with one. Informing the airline and providing the required DOT forms at least 48 hours in advance of traveling with a service dog is typically required and will give them time to prepare to accommodate you and your dog as best as possible. Service dogs are trained to do work or perform specific tasks that benefit those with disabilities. These can include visual or hearing impairments, mobility challenges, or psychiatric conditions like anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorders. Number 3, ensure your service dog is fully trained. The main requirement for being a service dog is proper training, and this is something airlines will look for in transporting your service dog. They should be able to remain calm, follow instructions, and complete tasks that directly assist their handler with their disability. Airlines reserve the right to refuse to transport animals if they violate safety regulations, including behavior. If your dog is engaging in behavior like barking, growling, or jumping, they likely won't be accepted as a service animal. Airlines also have the right to refuse transport of service dogs who are still in training, so be sure service dog training is complete before traveling. Make sure your service dog is comfortable in crowded places. If you're planning on traveling with a service dog, they must be socialized in public environments before you take flight. The process of getting on a plane with a service dog requires moving through several public spaces, including airport security, airport terminals, and being on the airplane itself. When your dog is already comfortable in crowds, you don't have to worry about them becoming overwhelmed or reacting to busy situations you might encounter while traveling. Service dogs, and all dogs, need to be able to be alert without being reactive and stay present in unfamiliar situations to travel well. Number 5, bring a clean-up kit. Even if you're not taking an extended flight, the process of traveling can be a long one, waiting to check bags, then get through security. And finally, for your flight to board can have you and your service dog waiting for quite a while. Be prepared for bathroom emergencies by bringing disposable puppy pads, poop bags, and wet wipes or paper towels that can be used to clean up if necessary. Try not to overfeed your dog before or during travel to avoid too many bathroom breaks. Keep in mind, if you'll be traveling on a flight longer than 8 hours, you'll also have to fill out the DOT's Service Animal Relief Attestation Sanitation Form. This states that your dog will either be fine without relieving themselves for the duration of the flight, or that they'll be able to do so in a way that doesn't cause a health sanitation issue, which you'll have to describe. Using the resources in your cleanup kit should work just fine. Number 6, make sure your service dog is fully vaccinated. All animals being transported by plane, including service dogs, should be healthy enough to travel. While airlines can't require you to provide additional health documents when traveling with a service dog, the forms you will be required to fill out ask you to attest to the fact that your dog is fully vaccinated and up to date on shots. Scheduling a checkup with your veterinarian before traveling with your service dog will make sure they're in good health and ready to fly. This is the best way to keep you, your service dog, and all other passengers safe and healthy for the journey. And remember that bonus tip I gave you. It's always a good idea to just go ahead and get the health certificate anyhow. Number 7, be prepared for questions about service dogs. Airlines are not allowed to ask you questions about your specific disability, but they may ask you to confirm whether your dog is required for your disability. They may also ask questions that will help them confirm your need for a service dog and whether your dog meets the requirements to be defined as such. Some questions you may be asked by airline authorities include, what tasks or functions does your dog perform for you? What has the dog been trained to do for you? And would you describe how the animal performs this task or function for you? Number 8, know your rights. When traveling with a service dog, you're protected under certain laws through the Americans with Disabilities Act and the United States Department of Transportation. Airlines are required to recognize and transport all breeds of dogs as service animals, though they're not required to recognize any other species as such, even if the airline has a policy of no pets. It's unlawful for airlines to require you to sit in a certain spot because you're traveling with a service dog, and your service dog must be permitted to sit in the space under the seat in front of you if their size allows. Airlines aren't permitted to require any documentation from individuals traveling with service dogs other than the DOT transportation form and the service animal relief form we mentioned previously. So what about emotional support animals? Well, unlike the protection provided by the Department of Transportation to service dogs, airlines are not required to transport emotional support animals, or ESAs, or other companion animals, even if they are dogs. In this case, it is up to the individual airline. There are a handful of airlines that will still transport ESAs, like Volaris, WestJet, and LATAM Airlines. These airlines may, however, require additional documentation and usually additional fees to transport companions that don't meet the requirements of service dogs. Do you have questions about flying with your service dog? Contact us today. At Alaska Dog Works, we are happy to answer any questions you may have about flying with your service dog. You can contact us today to learn more. Did you know at Alaska Dog Works, we offer a free discovery call to see if we are a good fit to work together with your dog? We even offer virtual dog training classes. Did you know that delivering a class online can be more effective than in person? Why? Because we can use the power of many multimedia tools like community, video, and podcasts that will help you reach your goals. And we know it works. So what do you think? Did you learn anything new about your canine buddy and traveling? Before we end the show, let's press pause for a sec. Maybe ask yourself, why did this resonate with me? What aspect of my relationship with my canine buddy could I apply this to? And what am I going to do differently this week to make my dog's training a little easier? So take some time to mull it over, talk it out with a family member or trusted friend, put some ideas down in your training journal, and then check back next week for our next episode. And as always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode, so reach out over on X at First Paw Media and let's spark a conversation. Until then, keep going. You're doing great. It's time to create the relationship with your dog that you've always dreamed of. Thank you for listening to DogWorks Radio. You can find the show notes for this episode and all others at alaskadogworks.com. And if you know someone in your life who needs help with their dog's training, be a hero and share our podcast with them. And we will see you next time.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.